the last thing that someone wants to hear when they're so used to hustling and you say stop. And they're like, I can't. I got this and I got this and I got this. And yet there's a wisdom in there that knows if something's going to change, they have to stop.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. And I am just delighted to introduce you to Dr. Kelly Schuh. Now, before we got on the air and everything, I was asking her what's really important, and she's going to tell you. But I want to tell you something that if you're building a business, if you're taking on all of this energy in your life to do something great, let's take a moment to really think about your why. And let's really think about why that is so important that you show up fully and authentically. Most people that I talk to, they say, I want to do this for impact. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Kelly Schuh here today. She happens to be an expert on profit mastery and on being able to be attractive in your wealth. Dr. Kelly, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm so glad to be here too. So thank you so much for having me. I love starting it off with impact, right? Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Because I love talking about income. I love talking about wealth, but it's really because it's a tool. You know, it is something that we can use to do good in the world, to have a really meaningful impact. And I'm just so curious, what got you into this particular set of expertise as an entrepreneur?
So we could go way back. And I would say my journey as an entrepreneur really began as a chiropractor. So when you hear Dr. Kelly Schuh, you're hearing it through the lens of that was my first bricks and mortar business. And so I did that for many years. I got pregnant with my first daughter and I was really sick. I was bedridden. And so that was my great awakening. And the word impact and income came in really clearly when you're sick and bedridden. I really started to question the manner in which I was doing business. And what I mean by that is I didn't get income if I didn't get my hands on my patients. So there's this thing, even back then, called the internet. So it was during that time that I really pivoted. I never went back to chiropractic full time. I went into coaching and online business. So that was back in 2010. And so what got me into it, I guess, the beginning of it was a health crisis. And really wanting to leverage and having more income, reaching more people. But the biggest thing, like you started this off with, more impact. So that's kind of like how I went into the digital space.
I love that. You know, I think having worked with so many coaches over the years, most, if not all, have a crisis story, you know, kind of that moment that they had to face the reality of the path that they were on. And if you've studied the hero's journey, it's the calling. It's that moment when it becomes really, really important. You know, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think a lot of people would face that hardship and not necessarily derive meaning from it in the same way to turn around and do something great. So you decide to become a coach. You do it in 2010, which is pretty early days for a lot of online
It was
coaches.
early days.
Yeah,
I know.
it is. Yeah. So what was that like? How would you say things are different now?
Oh my gosh. So I told you about my health crisis. Let's talk about my wealth crisis. So
Let's do
my
it.
wealth crisis really is like, how did you step into embodied feminine leadership and prosperity and presence? Because that's what I now do, working with that high achieving coach, consultant, C-suite woman, visionary. Most of us are trained as coaches to just hustle, right? Because that's what the conditioning field was. So let me tell you, so my wealth crisis, I was 5 years in as a coach and I had done all the things. I'd hired the coaches. I wrote the book, which was an Amazon bestseller. I created a community of over 14,000 women, which was big back then. And I had
That's
the
big
course.
now, just for the record. That's still big.
Okay. All right. So it's like being the recovering perfectionist that I am, I had checked all the boxes. And I was broke and not broken. And I was ready to quit to go back to chiropractic, profession that I loved. My coach, really, I was $130,000 in debt. Let's get real. I was $130,000 in debt. At that point, a 5-year-old. So we had gone from a 2-income family to a single income family because I was going to be a coach, even though I wasn't making any money. And so it was that wake up call of like something has to shift. And it was a sombering moment. And it was a moment that changed my life. And my coach said, why don't you double your rates? And I felt nauseous and I thought she was absolutely crazy. And it was a pivotal moment because she could sense that pulling back, like, okay, I wonder if she's going to do it. And she said, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? And I said, no client will sign up. And I'm back to where I am right now, which is desperate and I'm going to have to quit. And she said, all right, well, I dare you. And man, Amanda, don't dare me. I dare you to dare me. Because watch out. Like I love a good dare. And that in that dare, I doubled my business, or I'm sorry, I doubled my rates. I tripled my business. So I went from a 50K a year coaching business to 150K. It was more about the journey, who I became as a leader. And I started taking things seriously. I really looked at what is my money blueprint? Who is the CEO that makes multiple 6 figures up to 7 figures? So I had to create a new identity. And so that really was a pivotal moment in my life. And I live that now through that lens of presence and vibration and identity.
So good. That's so good. I went through a really similar experience actually of
Yeah.
significant increase in the rates. And I'm looking left and I'm looking right at all these examples of people not doing that. And I was really scared. I was really nervous, the same way. And I'm curious if you had this similar experience where when you step into, no, I am going to command that level of a price, there's like this embodiment, this leadership that goes with it, where it's like, well, I guess that I'm going to have these standards now. I guess I'm going to show up in this way. I guess I'm not going to waste my time in that way, right? Like, did you find the same kind of activation when you made the decision you were going to be a higher performer?
It was, I love the word activation that you just used because it was an activation of a new embodiment and it was very uncomfortable. When we grow in those kinds of ways, it's triggering and it's what's needed. I love the book 10X is easier than 2X. And for those listeners that don't know that book, you need to know that book.
You need to know that book.
And we've created this like 10X collective of female entrepreneurs and visionaries and leaders that they're used to the hustle mentality, which is go, 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 grow, grow, grow. And there's no time for slow, slow, slow. And that's really where the magic happens. That's where the 10X. So going back to identity, and Sullivan teaches us, you've got to let go of 80% of who you've been. If you're going to 10X your life, it's not about working harder. It's about frequency. It's about what I now call the grace code or the wealth frequency. And it's an embodiment. You can't fake it, and you actually have to get out of your mind and into your body, into your bones. And this is where I use human design to really be able to look at someone's blueprint for success and get them back into alignment. So I used to align people's spines, and now I align women and visionaries with their worth. There's a lot of self-worth that gets challenged when you're rising in your frequency of wealth. And so now I align them with their worth. So they create this quantum leap in wealth. Magic lives there in that place. So yeah, a lot of identity.
I totally agree with you that it's very possible to work hard and have hardly anything to show for it, because that identity of being that hard worker, it is so sexy, like to be needed, to be busy, and it is really rewarded in our society. So, but what came up for me as you were saying that, I was like, it is actually hard to decide to do things differently than other people. It's hard to do that inner work, and it's hard to like slow down if you're so accustomed to the speed and that instant dopamine hit of the immediate social reward of being the it girl or whatever it is that's been driving you. Like, it is actually hard to slow down. That's been my experience anyway.
Absolutely. And I specialize in high achieving women. So they've had a really great level of success and they're exhausted. And they're going, okay, what's next? And they're often in that Gen X time period of their Gen Xers. A Gen Xers is a woman who's born between 1965 and 1980. So we're reaching that point in our lives of like, okay, what is the next mountain? Because I don't want to work the way I've been working. Like, it's got to look different. So it's like the last thing that someone wants to hear when they're so used to hustling and you say stop. And they're like, I can't. I got this and I got this and I got this. And yet there's a wisdom in there that knows if something's going to change, they have to stop. They have to pause and quiet the mind, quiet the nervous system so that they can actually hear. They can hear that inner voice that's been screaming at them and they've not been listening.
I mean, like the things that made us successful when we were 20, when we didn't know anything and we didn't have the skill set, we didn't have the network, we didn't have like you said, the wisdom. You know, it's that classic, what got you here won't necessarily get you there. And I think that Gen X, I am technically a millennial, married to an older man who is very Gen X-y. So I live in kind of that place, right? Where it's like your kids are getting to that certain age where they're getting self-sustaining. You're starting to think about like they're empty nesting. You've got the parents that are aging and you've got to take care of them as well. So I think that there's for sure that exhaustion you're talking about of trying to act like the 20-year-old when you're not, right? You're very much not.
Right. Yeah,
But
your
also,
body's
like,
changing.
your body's changing, your hormones are changing, the needs from your family and around you are changing. And like, I do think that is a stage of life where, you know, whether we're talking 2025 or even 50 years ago, it is a very pivotal stage of life that it matters a lot to the quality of the rest of your life, what kinds of decisions you're making now. I love this.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I am a stand for in feminine leadership, the embodied feminine leader, especially in today's times, things are happening so fast and we can't keep up. So let's just be real. We can't keep up. So stop trying. It's actually
Well, not
better
individually,
to just stop.
you're not supposed to.
Yeah, you're and you and I are both in the dames. And one of the things that I love about the dames is one word, collaboration. And I think it is a huge part of the embodiment of feminine leadership. So wherever you are, if you want to go to another level, lean in and create connections, real connections with other women that have similar kinds of goals. It makes such a difference. And again, this is like the anti-hustle approach, right? Like
And
lean in.
it's part of impact, right? Like I think about the manifestation of this very podcast. What happened? We were both just contributing in that incubator. You know, we were on a Zoom call. I mentioned in passing, like, hey, I host this podcast. I'm trying to reach more entrepreneurs, more people. And you were like, how about me? And it was just like, it was easy to have. And so I get to have impact on your business. You get to have impact on my business. We get to have impact on each other on like a soul level. And maybe there might be even some business that comes out of this. We don't know. But I do know that if neither of us showed up to that day and heard and listened to each other and spoke up the way that we did, this content would never have happened and any ripple from those moments. And like, what is impact but that ripple, right?
I just got full body chills when you shared that. And I remember that moment. And we have so many moments in our lives that are grace-filled. Like, just to pause, what you just shared is the metaphor of the medicine that I'm sharing. This idea of follow the vibe, follow the flow, connect with other people that want to be in your presence. And you're not working harder. Like you and I connecting, it was divine. It was divine. And so I really think there is a new and a different way to do business. I think women naturally know that we don't need to compete with one another, that we can actually help one another. It's in our hearts. And so why not? Why not rise together and have greater impact? So
I
love how we're
completely
getting
agree.
impact theme. Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to ask you because you mentioned to me before we started recording that you've got this project that you're really, really excited about, that you're directing all this energy towards. Do you mind just taking 30 seconds and sharing with us, like, what is it that you're working on and why is that a really important thing for you right now in this season?
Yeah. I feel like it was a divine initiation. And the last piece came in at 11:11 on 11:11. And for those who know numerology, 1 is all about new beginnings. And to make a longer story short, within a 48-hour period, I connected with a friend of mine who said that her father's dying wish was to build a school in Africa. And he passed last year. And so
Mm.
I said, I got full body chills and said, I want to be a part of this. We're sitting under a tree after a long hike. And I said, how about we bring a group of female thought leaders and entrepreneurs? Let's climb for the cause and this idea of women moving mountains. And so this is what we're doing. We are building this, her father's dream. He had already built a nonprofit in Africa, baking bread for the community, and the children are fed. Every week they make like 400 loaves of bread. And so we are taking this spark of what he desired and also what the people wanted. I think it's really important to know the headmaster had been co-dreaming this dream with him, and we're making this dream a reality. And so literally we are building this school and we're encouraging girls to go. And in their country, girls are not empowered to be educated. They are often married off and not educated. And they're really going to that older, like, oh, just go, you're here to make babies. Right? So anyway, I love that we're empowering girls. And yeah, so that's how Killy with Dr. Kelly was born from a full body chilled connection with a dear friend of mine.
Love that. And you've been working with people as a coach for goodness. I was just doing the math. Like it's been over 15 years that you've been doing this. These kinds of goals, as you were speaking, I was like, man, we all have something that gives us full body chills, causes that we really, really care about, things that we want to see different in the world, ripple we really want to have. I'm just so curious, like when you are working with somebody, how often do you think people allow themselves to really go there with saying, I want to do this, I want to have like this kind of impact? And, how
Mm.
tough is it, do you think, for them to say, I'm good, I'm safe, I'm going to go after the big, bold thing, and I'm going to be able to finance it?
So the question was, what was it? Go back to the question about like the
When in your
dream of
experience working with
fruition.
people, yeah, in your experience in working with people, like how often do you think people are really tuned in to the kind of impact that they want to have? And I was just also really curious about like do they cut themselves, I was gonna say sell themselves short, but I mean cut themselves short of like, I don't
Yeah,
think
they
I
do.
can raise the money for that. I don't think I can enroll the support in that. Like that's a pipe dream. So I am really kind of curious on both sides of just awareness of the kind of impact people can have, but also like, do you see as a coach working with people who are obviously care about change, do you see any kind of limitation that people impose on themselves with that?
I see limitation all the time. And a lot of the body of work that I've developed has been around women owning their worth and their value. And so it can show up in many different ways. And one of the ways it shows up is feeling worthy of living your dream. And they often will kind of try to just stuff it and get the work done first. Like get the career going and then you can go live your dream. But there's this idea of like I'm not enough or I'm not worthy or enough. And so I feel like a lot of women, I think every woman that comes to me, actually, I'm just going to say it for all these years, every single woman that has ever worked with me has a worthiness wound. Boom. Truth bomb. And so
Can
that
you unpack that
wound,
actually for us? Like when you say that,
yeah, yeah.
what exactly is a worthiness wound? And
Hmm.
just like even the word worth can sometimes have different meanings. Like what do you really mean by that?
Yeah. What I mean by that is a woman who knows that she's enough. She doesn't have to prove anymore. Her presence is enough. It's not about doing, it's about being. It can show up in money and how they undervalue themselves. So it can show up in, I don't have time to work out. You don't have time not to work out. It can show up in an abusive relationship, right? Like, why are they still with a toxic partner when they know it's toxic? No, you are worthy of being treated like a queen. It can show up one of my clients who is a multi millionaire, and I said she lives here locally, and I found out she loves to hike and hike locally, and she's so overscheduled. She said, I don't remember the last time I could just take my dog for a hike. So there's like a worthiness piece of like the having the spaciousness and having the white space. So those are all the ways that it can show up. And I am here to be a messenger of you're enough. And it's not through your doing and it's not through your proving. Just be here now. You are enough for your dreams. You're enough for the love of your life, the money that you know you deserve, all the things. And how do we discover that? Is just stop and get into the frequency of abundance.
What's came up for me as you were answering that is the idea and the ideals of standards. Like, what kind of standard are you holding for yourself in your romantic partnerships or in your marriage? What standard do you hold for your children and how they treat you? What standard
Gosh,
for your
so
fitness, for
true.
your health, your nutrition? Like, just the word standard just kind of came up for me over and over again as you were describing this. That, one way that we express our self-worth and worthiness is to also admit that the standards that we want to hold ourselves to are worth holding. Like, it's worth holding that line. And I think one of the things that I've noticed really comes up in conversations with I work with both men and women. And what comes up in a lot of high performance is this almost like I was going to say like a heroism or a sacrifice. It's like misplaced sacrifice sometimes, where it's like, well, if not me, then who? And I'm the only one, and only I can do this. And it's like, well, that's not actually true. Like, you can have a greater impact on people if you allowed that standard, and that leadership to come through and not just feel like you're always the one left holding the bag, you know?
That's a worthiness thing. It
Mm-hmm.
really, really is feeling worthy of being supported. How many people do you know that are coaches? Because I know you specifically working with coaches wait way too long for their first hire to get support, and
Oh
yet
my God.
it's
They
such
wait on
a
everything.
they wait on
They wait on everything.
everything.
Yeah, they wait on
Uh,
everything. And like, very specifically, actually, one of the best things I did in my business recently is I launched a lower ticket program called the First Five Club. And even that, like, I hear sometimes from members, "Oh, I'm not getting the most maximum value." And I'm like, seriously, this is like your cup of coffee a week is what I'm charging. It's really
wow.
not expensive, and you're
Yeah.
beating yourself up over that level. And at the same time, you're trying to call in, or you say you want to call in 10, 20, $50,000 a month. It's like, well, you got to let go of the 50. You got to let go
Oh,
of that
Amanda,
person,
you're so spot on. And I
you
talk
know?
about like a vibrational match. When women come to me and they're wanting to say launch high ticket. And so we're realigning. I look at their human design chart. I look at how they are designed to succeed, and we get them back into alignment. And one of the things that we have to do is we've got to look at the relationship with money. What is that relationship and that story around money? And if they have never worked with a coach that they paid high ticket, vibrationally, how are they then going to pitch high ticket if they've never been on the receiving end of that level of support? It's a vibrational mismatch. And so, like what you're saying, Amanda, how can they be complaining if you're going to help them to rise, especially at that low ticket? It's like everything is a mirror vibrationally. And
Mm.
so, yeah, as you were sharing, I was like, oh my gosh, that has been a thing that I have witnessed. I remember one woman who hired me and she's like, she had just come out of corporate, which generally I work with coaches and consultants, and they've been in business for a long time and they're seasoned, but she came right out of corporate and she's like, I'm going to do it. And so when I shared with her, she had no idea what my price point was and she was blown away, but she got it. She said, I'm so glad I trusted you because we got her to the other end of it, and she got the vibrational match thing because then now she's high ticket, right? So anyway,
Yeah. And this is actually a debate that I've really thought about, because a lot of coaches use that, and I'm not saying you, but I'm saying a lot of coaches are like, well, if you don't invest in yourself, then how are you going to expect other people to invest in you? Which I think is largely true. And also, I think there's also other pathways to access that wealth as well. I do think that if you're a doctor, it's a good idea to go to the doctor. If you're a dentist, it's a good idea to have a dentist yourself. Like, that does make a lot of sense. But I just want to offer this for anybody who's just like, it feels like I need to overextend myself, or I need to spend money I don't have, or I need to like do all this kind of thing. It's like, no, that's not necessarily it. Because, for example, when I was in corporate America, I was involved in selling deals that were like $10 million. I never bought anything for $10 million ever, but I
Yeah.
was selling
Yeah.
things for $10 million, right? So how do you get into a frequency to be able to do that? Well, part of it is I was part of a larger corporate entity. So I knew that I had the backing of that. And so then my identity was like, oh yeah, this is just it. This is just how it is. And this is normalized, right? So there's other ways that you can pull it in as well. Hiring a coach is a very straightforward way. But if you're looking for other ways, or if you're, at a stage right now, or maybe you've already invested in a lot of coaches and you're in a season where you need to like correct for that a little bit, don't despair, like your value and your status is not necessarily in your wallet. It's in your identity and how you're showing up with it. I love that. Okay, cool. So, Dr. Kelly Schuh, how can people follow you and find out more?
I think the easiest place to follow me is on LinkedIn. We launched a LinkedIn newsletter that's called the X Collective, or that we just launched it. Let's see, the Gen X
It's
10X
new,
Collective.
new.
And it's newer. It's newer. You can find me at Dr. Kelly Schuh, and that's spelled SCHUH. I know that we'll put the links in the show notes. And if you want to DM me in LinkedIn, I'll show you. I'll share with you the link to get a free human design chart, because I feel like, and it's free. Free, free, free. We're just talking about like high ticket versus free. There's great value in knowing your design, because if you are trying to follow somebody else's strategy that's out of alignment, and then you feel like you're not winning in life. And some women will say, gosh, I feel powerless. Like it's not working. There must be something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with you. There's often strategies that are misaligned. So my point being, you can DM me on LinkedIn at Dr. Kelly Schuh, and let's get you your human design chart, and just DM me chart, and I'll know that you heard through this podcast, and we'll get you a free chart so that you can start aligning with your most prosperous design.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a big fan of, assessments and getting to know ourselves a whole lot better. So I have a lot of colleagues that absolutely swear by the human design chart. I think that's super cool that you have an option for free. So I'm going to encourage people to go check that out if you're at all interested. And thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Kelly. I really appreciated your conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun. And when,
Yeah.
when it's fun, it's in flow. I think, Amanda, this will have impact. And we just never know, but it will have impact.
You never know. You never know. This is why content is so powerful, y'all. It's like throwing pebbles in the ocean. Like sometimes it just hits just exactly right. And you just never get to know which one it is. And by the way, listener, if you love this, just make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And go ahead and think of 3 friends that you think would really benefit from a conversation about having greater impact and greater alignment. Grab the link to this episode and go ahead and text it to them, DM them, however you actually talk to your friends. You can go ahead and do that, and take 30 seconds and leave a review, an honest review. Because when you do that, it helps somebody who's new to the show decide whether they're going to cozy up and spend some time together. And we really appreciate those reviews. They go a super long way. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will see you for another episode very soon. And until then, do what matters.